Tom Livesey here, superintendent and host of the What's Your Future podcast, here with a guest that we're going to introduce here in just a minute. But I just want to remind our listeners here that the purpose of this podcast is to celebrate our Oakridge graduates who have found personal and career success, expand career awareness possibilities for our students and families, inspiring them to show up, work hard, and dream about their future. And lastly, increase the understanding of the success our public schools are having. We've got Cary Harger here, who happens to be, was an employee. He's retired from Oakridge Public Schools. Cary, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. It's awesome to be here.
Awesome. Well, one of our traditions here at Oakridge is we always have an Oakridge graduate speak at graduation, and I heard some of your closing career thoughts, I'll call it.
Yeah.
You had some really neat stories in there, but one of the most unique ones is while you are retiring, you're starting in the career world all over again in retirement. So let's start the story with that. Tell me what your next steps are, and then we'll get back to how awesome it was here at Oakridge for a while.
Sure. So obviously with 30 years in at Oakridge, I'm still not old enough to fully retire. I still have to go back to work. And so with that in mind, my idea is that I wanted to still do something with my degree in biology and pursue hopefully something in nature, environmental science, conservation, somewhere along that line. And so I've done a little digging, and there are a couple of companies, private companies that were unbeknownst to me here in the Muskegon area.
Right.
And so I actually had a phone interview Q&A with one of those companies throughout West Michigan, but I had one of those conversations with them last Wednesday and had gave a little background on things and what my interest level was. And they discussed a couple of possible opportunities through them. And so they're supposed to get back with me next week and kind of go from there.
You're in the thick of things, and you spoke at graduation about, I'm one of you graduates. You got to get in there. You got to work hard. You got to put yourself out there. So what are you reteaching yourself as well as encouraging our students at the same time, what this phase of life is?
Yeah, I definitely am trying to fall back on my communication skills just through communicating with students or with parents or with administrators, community members, and just trying to keep those channels open and keep those things kind of flowing in terms of interview skills.
Yep.
And then also just staying open-minded and I even told the person I was discussing on Wednesday was, I don't know what I don't know. Being in education for 30 years in the public school setting, I don't know exactly what goes on out there in private sector, I guess the quote unquote real world outside of schools. So I'm staying open-minded to that as well.
Yeah. So it's exactly what our kids are going through right now, our seniors who have graduated, whether they're going straight to the university, going through the military, or just getting out there in the workforce, they're going through the exact same thing. So it's that you're never too old to learn new things and try to reinvent yourself. So I think that's the story with that. But let's go back. What year did you graduate at Oakridge High School?
I was class of 1990.
Class of 1990. I'm a 1990 grad myself. Unfortunately, I didn't graduate from Oakridge, and did you go to college knowing that you were going to be a teacher?
No, I knew I wanted to study biology.
All right.
So I knew I wanted to study biology, having biology with Jack Schugars as my teacher. I had 2 years of biology back to back, freshman and sophomore year. And he just made it so interesting. And I like being out in nature anyway, going hunting with my dad and things. And so I knew I wanted to pursue that. And I didn't know what I wanted to do with that biology. And I remember going to a meeting, like a job fair at the campus, and when I was already in college, and there was a whole page and a half of biology related opportunities, everything from mortician to, zookeeper to, whatever. And so it was almost more overwhelming. I thought it would help narrow it down. And then, ironically enough, a roommate of mine, my junior year, said he was going into education. And I was expressing some frustration that I needed to fill in my schedule, get my classes scheduled. And so he suggested, well, hey, take an education class. I said, I'm not going to be a teacher. And he says, well, just take it. It'll fill it in as like an elective. And so I ended up taking 2 classes. And it started from there. I had a great professor that first class, and just great memories of that class, of him. He was very upbeat, very, very excited, very peppy. presented definitely some eye-opening moments in that class in terms of education, and with a guest speaker I can remember coming in. And so it just took off from there. And pretty soon I was enrolling in the next class and the next class, and doing the next requirements. And I applied to the Department of Education, and was accepted. And I was a little late getting in, but so my student teaching was a semester late, but it unknowingly worked out really well, because then that placed me at Grand Haven High School for my student teaching. And then in the middle of the year after Christmas, I was ready for I had a student teaching done. So I thought I was just going to go roll into subbing, and for the second semester. And then there was a job opening here at Oakridge, and I applied and got that. And all of a sudden, 30 years later, here we are.
Right, divine intervention. So I'm going to go back to your going into college. That the theme that I'm continuing to hear is those that do choose to go to the university don't always have their career figured out as they're heading into the university. It's okay to go to college and figure it out while you're there.
Absolutely. And I kept an open mind. I knew I wanted to do the biology thing, but at the same time, you had so many prerequisites to take. You had the math, and you had your English and your social studies and whatnot. And at Hope, because it's a private school, you had religion requirement,
Yep.
2 classes for that. And so
Yep.
that also spurred my interest a little bit as well. But ultimately, I still knew I wanted to stay on the biology track. But luckily, the first 2 years were all basically prerequisites.
Yep. Yeah. So once you get there, you figure it out. And when our graduates from high school, Oakridge here, say, "Oh, I don't want to do. I don't want to go to college." It's like you can figure that out, and the career will come after that. Once you get that,
Right. Absolutely.
spending it through the university year. So you obviously graduated from high school, and we kind of skipped over a big step is getting into the university. There's a story there, and I want you to tell your story. Like as you were an Oak Ridge grad, 1990, and going into what ended up being Hope College, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Tell us that story. How did you find Hope? How did Hope find you? And how did you get into the university in the first place?
Sure. With also playing football, I started actually getting, I guess, recruiting letters, articles, copies of articles in the mail from the coaching staff. And at the time, yeah, it's like, Hope College, where's this? And I had to check it out, and found out it was in Holland. And so that kind of piqued my interest in that. Oh, they know about me playing football. And granted, it was probably one of those cold call kind of things where they send it out to everybody, but
Right.
still spurred my interest, and checked into them a little bit more. And then really had a discussion with myself in terms of, do I want to continue to play football? Do I not want to continue to play football? Because at the time, Grand Valley was still an option for me. And then also through my best friend in high school, uh, in the class, Larry Pierce, also going to Ferris. And so I attended a Ferris football workout, recruiting workout, found out basically I was going to be a preferred walk on, and probably just be on the practice squad for all the time being. And had a good discussion with my mom about the meaning of the degree name on the certificate, and figured that Hope would be more meaningful in a lot of different ways. And so continued there, and did the visit thing. And, looking back, and, thinking I'm a big bad high school senior with my varsity jacket on, walking across the
Right.
college campus. And, but the college students are realizing it's a campus visit, a bunch of people in the same boat, walking in the same group. And people actually said hi to me with my varsity jacket on. And I thought, well, this is weird. What are these college kids saying hi to me for? I'm just in high school. But that was a big moment, and it kind of helping me decide. And weirdly enough, also the campus, when I visited, it was early spring, and the campus was just blooming, and all the trees and the flowers, and the grass was fresh cut. And that was a big draw for me. And that just made it feel more at home, more comforting to know that I think I picked the right place.
That's great. I love that story because there's so many things about the high school experience that kids need to experience. And for you, it was an extracurricular activity that perhaps was your ticket or your nugget to try to pursue further education after high school.
Yeah. And like I say, I was unbeknownst to me, because I didn't fill anything out for Hope College or anything for them to start sending me letters and art game articles. But all of a sudden they were arriving, and I started, of course, back in the day, communicating either phone call or snail mail back to them, and it just continued on from there. And it was a great to take up, to find out if with that interest level, just how interested they are in you,
Right.
and to
Yeah. So perhaps this is the best opportunity to ask this question, because a lot of kids have so many challenges to think about before they get that university opportunity, and financial resources is often a barrier to getting that. Could you tell a little bit about your story about wondering how are you going to afford college, and if you completed the FAFSA, tell us about what that was like?
yeah, financially, I guess I was in a good and a bad spot. My parents were divorced when I was in second grade. And
Mhm.
so I was basically, I mean, I lived with mom. Dad had visitation and went on vacation with dad and things and different. But it was mom's name on the FAFSA and filling that out. And granted, a long time ago, a lot different with the FAFSA with paper pencil and you know, bubbling in all the letters and the numbers and sending it in. And they would send you a copy of it saying, this is what you sent. Is it correct? Is it not correct? And you're sending it back in with any corrections, and then vice versa. But the FAFSA was definitely beneficial. With my situation with divorced parents, my mom was basically uh, the one on record for the income.
Yep.
And so it was based on hers. And so I did have student loans. I had some scholarships. I had some grants that grant money isn't paid back. So it's kind of like a scholarship.
Yep.
Again, I had student loans. I also had a work study job, basically all 4 years that I was at college, where I put in an hour or two a day at a campus job somewhere, which the college was great about lining up multiple opportunities for me or different jobs opportunities to take advantage of and get paid and get my little employment check and take it to the business office and sign it over and basically ask for $10 back. So I have a little pocket money and pizza money. So, uh, but that way I felt like I was doing my little bit of part too, besides just my mom, working hard and signing the check.
Yeah, that's a bit of intimidating going into that with all those unknowns, and then being able to figure that along the way. And it all started with filling that FAFSA out and having the university help you walk you through the pathway of being able to afford a college education.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then they have all their resources that they're going to look at and compare to my situation and find out where I best fit. Everything from high school GPA to interest levels to clubs and organizations that were offering money and whatnot. And so it's just a great resource to take advantage of. And of course, back in the day, I didn't realize that, you know, or how big even the community foundation Muskegon County is now with the scholarship opportunities that they offer. I mean, so that's a fantastic resource to fall back on.
So if our kids are willing to put the grit in, the opportunity's there. Even if you think you come from a not well off family, the university experience is possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I had student loans after I graduated, and I think I paid on those for about 10 years. And from the lending company, I remember getting phone calls and they say, well, you're behind on your loan. And I said, well, yeah. I said, because I know you're always going to be there. And they're like, what do you mean? And I said, well, I need to pay the mortgage and the groceries and then like keep the lights on. And I said, I know that student loan's always going to be there. And so there were few times where I had to go into forbearance and, push off the loan payments for a few months and focus on the necessities. And then, ultimately got it all paid off and all done. But it was just, some other, I guess, adulting
Yep.
things that I didn't know about. I didn't learn
Right.
about and had to learn the hard way but got it figured out and got it all done. So
Well,
it's still a rewarding experience.
I appreciate your transparency, because it's not easy. Well, you're not claiming this is an easy process, but that the work that you put in made a difference. You got that degree, and here you are, 30-year career turned out pretty well for you.
Yeah, it's still wild to think that it's been that long, 30 years. But yeah, there was a lot of, matter of fact, I was just having a conversation with somebody else talking about their son's going to be a freshman in college and talking about how I had kind of pressure on me with knowing that, it's basically mom working a lot of overtime and saving up money and then sending to college big chunks of money, that I better get my butt out of bed at 8 a.m. Make sure I, get earlier than that so I can get up, get ready, get breakfast and get to class on time and stay up on my work and those kind of things. Cause I didn't want to let her down,
Right.
knowing that she's going to all this work on her own to make sure that I had this opportunity. So I wanted to make sure I took the best opportunity that I could take
Right.
advantage of that myself, and work hard for that as well.
That's great. Yeah. Awesome story. That's grit, opportunity, university that can all fit together. So appreciate you sharing that. I'm going to go back to high school again. I know that you had some influential people or programs that contributed to your success. Why don't you give some of those people or programs some shout outs here today?
Like I mentioned, I already mentioned Jack Schugars, huge influence on me, obviously, with the biology and playing football, and then coming back after graduating from college and getting into Oakridge, teaching biology and coaching football with him. Just been a great mentor of mine for basically since freshman year of high school when I first met him.
Yep.
Barney Goodrich, another football coach, teacher, just John Swinburne was another great influence in my life, getting me involved in track. He bugged me every day until I basically said yes.
Yep.
And then I was sold on it. So he was a great influence on me as well. Just, I had a really good high school experience with the teachers. I saw their willingness to help me, and kind of go the distance for me in different situations. And so I was able to, I felt like paying that back by my efforts in class and doing well with them. And it was just a very rewarding. I still, now I'm Facebook friends or, contacts with a lot of those
Right.
former teachers of mine that,
Hmm.
that we just kind of cherish those days back then when it was quite a different situation, but still just very influential people in my life. Erin Walling was another one.
Oh, yeah.
Had her in class, had her as a teacher 3 different times from middle school to high school.
Yep.
Um, and Roger Hewert was just a great math teacher, helped out with shot put for me and different things. So, and but it went beyond the student teacher relationship because they showed a personal side, but they didn't cross a boundary. They didn't overdo it. They just showed their humanity
Yep.
at the teaching position, which warmed us up to them a little bit more instead of just being the cold, isolated teacher. They
Right.
showed their human side, and
Yeah.
so that was huge.
Well, I could see that in you as well, particularly with your athletes. I know there's a different level of bond, not that regular students and student athletes are that different. Seeing you interact with the kids as you're walking down the hall, I can just see the respect and a mutual respect between you and the students. And I can say I know every person that you mentioned except for one, and every one of them has that same type of value in kids adult relationship. So, little shout out for you there as well.
I appreciate that. Well, and I like I say, I learned from some great examples. So for sure,
Paying it forward. I love it.
absolutely.
Um, uh, you talked a little bit about the financial challenges. What other challenges did you face along the way to what I'm going to say your now past career and even your next steps? But what challenges can you speak of as throughout your career that you relied on some of your values to get you through some of those challenges?
One, probably the biggest one that I've learned over the years from being a young teacher to a veteran teacher is that it was to not take it personal as far
Mhm.
as from a student, and I did learn that, and I tried to tell the students every year that when you come into my class, whether you had a bad class the hour before or a bad night the night before, is to try to leave that baggage, so to speak, at the
Mhm.
door so that they didn't come in with those thoughts already in their head. And that's tough. That's tough for anybody, especially a high school student, uh, because that's for the majority, that's their world is outside of that school. And so what goes on outside of school very easily gets carried with them. But I tried to encourage them to leave that outside of the door so that they could focus on the lesson and kind of take a mental break from maybe what bad things are going on or what they're feeling or the drama. And sometimes they couldn't. Sometimes they couldn't let go of that, and that would boil over. And then I was the recipient of that boil over. And I had to learn, and it took me a long time to learn that it wasn't personal. They weren't personally attacking me. They were attacking the situation they were in.
Yeah.
Through me. So their insults, their language, the name calling, whatnot, it was to the situation.
Yep.
And I had an experience very early on in my first couple of years of teaching through the alternative ed program that with a parent that I quickly learned to give the student a lot more grace than I had originally started to give them.
Right.
Thinking that it was going to be this one-on-one battle, and that's not the case at all.
Right.
And so that's been a huge lesson for me over the years, is just not to take it personal.
Yep.
And just to kind of, and I don't know exactly what the situation might have been that they were in, but to just take it with a little grace. And sometimes even, that student might go talk to another teacher or a counselor, and then I would have a conversation with that other teacher or counselor, and then they would say, the student wants to come back and apologize, or the student wants to come back and talk with you. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And we would have that conversation after everyone's all relaxed, and there would be the expression of apologies, and just trying to realize where each person was coming from. And that was hugely beneficial for both myself and the student. And I really applaud the students for wanting to do that, because
Right.
I had a reputation of being the mean old Mr. Harger, and not many people would want to come back and talk with me. Not many people wanted to talk with me in the first place. And for somebody to then realize that, they were just having a bad day. Yeah, I need to go back and work things out with Mr. Harger. That was awesome. So I definitely gave them applause for that.
I love that story. And that's a skill that can be applied to non-educators as well, is you never know what's going on in somebody else's life. Treat everybody as it's their best day, and try to make a difference with every individual you interact with.
Absolutely. I try to do that now with every store employee that I see, every host or hostess and waiter or waitress. Just try to present my most pleasant self to them, and maybe hopefully catch them off guard.
Right.
Maybe say hello to them first, and then that, maybe gets them out of their funk, for a little bit, for a few minutes.
I love that. Life lesson. I'll categorize that as a life lesson there. All right. What advice would you give to any current student interested in a similar career path that you are either finishing or moving towards?
For students that were interested in education, I would probably give them the same advice that I learned about that their student reaction to them being a teacher is not going to be personal. There's a lot of things going on outside of the school and home situation that they might not be aware of. And to have compassion for them, but at the same time, make sure that you have that standard that that the students know that they are to try to uphold. Using manners, doing their best on the work, putting in the time, and not just being friendly with the teacher and the teacher's going to let them skate, kind of thing. You still have a standard to uphold too, and they still have a job as a student, and you have the job as a teacher. And uh, and also, hey, as an early teacher, a new teacher, fall back on some of those resources from your previous teachers.
Right.
And even get a hold of them and ask them, use them as a mentor and say, hey, what would you do in this situation? Or, can you help me come up with a creative situation for this student or this unit? How do I get the kids involved? Those kind of things, because obviously all of their teachers have had to go through that same situation. So they have a lot of ideas that they've probably brainstormed. And I guess one of the unspoken rules about being a teacher was always beg, borrow, and steal.
Yep.
And because a lot of things that educators have aren't original and necessarily to that educator. And so they've gotten it from somebody else and just passed it on down the line. So that's what I found very helpful with even new teachers that I've had. student teaching wise or new hires that I share my resources with them.
Yep. Awesome. I love you sharing that. I'm just finding while I knew some of these things, there's just so many similarities between your life path and my life path. Both graduated in 1990. Your Jack Schugars is my Denny Patzer. Denny Patzer was my high school football coach. Denny Patzer went on to be a superintendent. I still call him today whenever I need advice, just like you call Jack Schugars. Both went to a faith-based university, played football, and so um, I can just identify with so many. In fact, I might even add this one too, that social emotional connection skill that you said you learned early in your career was also a learned skill for me as well. I mean, I was just focused on being me, grinding it out, doing what I had to do, but you got to make sure you put other people first. And that's what you learned. And I have that as well.
Yeah, definitely learned that not to, I guess, and through even meetings with players and new teams or whatever, the word selfless
Yes.
would always come up a lot instead of, put the self, cross out the selfish and put selfless.
Yeah.
So, and that's a hard skill. That's a hard skill for people to learn,
Yeah.
is to think of those other people first. And I'm not perfect at it by any means, but I definitely try to remind myself to do that quite often, is just to step back and think about, okay, where are they coming from?
Right. All right, let's close this out on some fun notes here. Not that this wasn't all fun all along the way here. So I told you we were going to end the podcast with two little things. One,
Okay.
I call this the diary of a successful career, where the last guest gets to ask a question to the next guest. And so I'm going to ask you what question you want me to ask the next guest. But I'm going to ask you a question of one of our previous guests. And this question actually comes from Dr. Carla Kevin, who was one of your former students.
Yeah, she was.
Yep. And now she's director of special ed here at Oakridge. But here's her question for you that you can answer. And then you get to ask the next question for the next guest. And
Okay.
Carla says, with the benefit of hindsight, what would you change along your pathway to a successful career?
Oof. Probably, as I mentioned before, probably just the realization to not take things so personal,
Yeah.
because then that gets bottled up. It starts to build up. The next day when I would see that student or have another run in with that student, it would kind of just escalate. Instead of starting from zero, it would just build from where it was previously. That's probably the biggest lesson, the biggest wish. If I could go back, I would tell myself just to cool it a little bit more. I think maybe just having that, not to blame football, but having that football mentality
Yeah.
was kind of where it was coming from.
Hmm.
And I would go back and probably just tell myself to relax a little bit more, but still keep, obviously, keep my high standards, but
Sure. Sure.
just to not take it such as a personal one.
I've seen you obviously in the later half of your career, so I didn't know you at the early part of your career, but the fact that you can identify that as something you wish you'd learned sooner, but certainly you learned and acknowledged that it's a learned skill and you're doing your best every single day speaks volumes to your integrity. All right. What question would you like to ask or what question would you like me to ask the next podcast guest? Any ideas?
I guess it's kind of a little bit of a standby one, but maybe what, if they can narrow it down to what one person was most influential,
Yep.
and what was the situation? Why do they remember that one person so well?
Yep.
So
I love that
something
one.
along those lines.
It's always awesome to give somebody a shout out. So I love that question. And one of our next guests is going to get that question.
Right.
And the last question, and this is called the favorite things bit here. So just to know you on a personal level, we're going to just do some of your favorite things. What's your favorite way to unwind or relax after a long day?
Being at home, just kind of having a conversation with my wife, or years ago, when my kids were still at home,
Yep.
and just finding out about their day and just maybe venting about mine. For them to listen. That's definitely a big way to help unwind. My wife and I still do that. We make sure that we have that conversation about how, ask each other, how'd your day go? What'd you do today? And my wife will apologize. Sorry for venting. I'm like, nah, don't be. That's what, that's part
Right.
of it. Get it out of you so that it doesn't consume you, doesn't eat you up. So
That's on record
that
that you value that time with your wife. And when she
absolutely,
watches the podcast, she'll know how special she is to you.
absolutely,
How
absolutely.
about favorite book, movie, or TV show that has impacted you? Any favorites there?
Man, movie. Well, go back way back and say The Breakfast Club was
Okay.
pretty impactful.
Yeah.
Just seeing the cliques that were portrayed, and then how those walls kind of came down, and
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
the crossover of the groups, and so to speak, in that movie. That one was a good one. Yeah,
Great for an educator too, right?
but yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah. Like I say, I started out as with the attitude of that principal, and then that
You're
quickly
right.
went away.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite song or piece of music?
It's a Wonderful World
There
by
you
Louis
go.
Armstrong. Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Love that
That one
one.
just that one sticks out. That one jumps out at me big time. So I like that one.
Last one here. Favorite childhood memory.
Oh man.
I've only got 30
Uh,
seconds here, so it's got to be brief.
yeah. Oh, childhood memory. Probably just some of the vacations and things that we went on. When you ask that
Favorite place. Where did you go?
favorite place,
Yeah.
I've been fortunate. We've been to Hawaii
Awesome.
as a family vacation. We did a camping trip around Lake Michigan.
Awesome.
We went out east and tried crab legs, lobster. Just
Great.
very fortunate. So
All right. Family memories is the moral of the story there. I love those
yes,
stamp sticks. I just went to a ice bucket, I should say a bucket list trip to Iceland this summer. So I'll have to
very
share
cool.
stories with you when I see you. So, all
Yeah, very
right.
cool.
Cary Harger, 1990 graduate, 2025 retiree, still going with his career in the world of biology, giving his life lessons here on the What's Your Future podcast. Cary, thanks so much for spending the time with me and telling your story. I can't wait to get this released to our community.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the invite and the opportunity to do it. It's been awesome. I've some great experiences here at Oakridge. Tons of memories, and being a former graduate, now a former employee. It's been a very rewarding experience.
Awesome. So, guests, we are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and on our website at oakridgeschools.org/ What's Your Future podcast. Join us, subscribe, help us tell the story of the success of Oakridge High School graduates. Have a good day, everyone.